On to part 91, General Aviation and Operating Flight Rules. This part entails all standard flight rules applicable to anything that flies. Part 101, our drones wouldn't exist without first looking at part 91. Okay, you had to see, well, we know that most aircrafts fly above 400 feet. We know that blah, 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 blah. Therefore, the safest option is to make our drones fly below 400 feet. The safest option is to make our drones fly within 500 meters. Okay? Part 101 was built based on the conditions of Part 91. Okay. Cool. Both manned and unmanned aviation are subject to the provisions found in this part. Guys, provisions is just talking about the details of the part. Okay? Many provisions found in Part 101 of the CARS draw their origins from Part 91. So if you were to have Part 91 open and Part 101 open, and you read Part 101 and Part 91, you would understand why Part 101 exists the way it does, because you also understand why Part 91 exists. Okay. Cool. There are 3 things that you guys need to know. There's 4, but let's talk about 3 for now. It is called an NWA. An NWA stands for a Navigation Warning Area. NWA is your Navigation Warning Area. And it is a type of airspace, not an aerodrome. It can be an airspace that starts on the ground, and normally it is. Okay, because you can have airspace that starts on the ground and goes into the air, but you can also have airspace that starts in the air and goes higher in the air. Most of your NWAs, Navigation Warning Areas, will start on the ground and have airspace climbing into the air. Okay. There are 3 types of airspace that are classified as NWAs. Okay, 3 types of airspace classified as NWAs. Number 1, you need to understand, yes, FAP, that's right, FAP, but you need to understand what FA is. Okay, so if I tell you that FAP is a prohibited airspace, what do you guys think the FA stands for? Yeah? South Africa. Okay, a lot of people will say flight area or flight airspace prohibited. We're just lucky that we can say it like that. But no, FA doesn't stand for anything. You know that X in algebra is a symbol that represents your answer at the end? FA might as well be a symbol that says South African airspace. So if you are in Namibia and you read FAP 64, then you know that it doesn't apply to you in Namibia because FA means South Africa. Okay. But as I was saying, we are lucky enough to have FA where we can just think flight area or flight airspace. But it doesn't mean that. Okay, it's just a symbol. It might as well have been XZ. Okay, XZP, that would also mean South African airspace, but it doesn't. FA. Who decided that? Who decided that FA is South Africa? ICAO. ICAO decided it. And it's one of the only gripes I have with ICAO, because why are you giving us FA when we know that it's ZA? Okay, but it's fine, because FA, like I said, we can remember flight area. So we have FAP, which means South African Prohibited Area. Okay? P is prohibited. Guys, there is one rule for prohibited areas. As a civil aircraft, you do not enter prohibited areas and you do not fly in prohibited areas. Okay, that is the regulation. But, as with every regulation, every limitation, and every prohibition, there is a circumstance that calls for action beyond the current set of consequence. In this case, what would it be? How would you fly in a prohibited area?
If your drone loses communication with your remote and then goes into your...
That's true, but that would be infringement. Okay, how would you how would you legally, yes?
You have to, I can't remember the name, you have to file for that piece of.
Okay, number one, you can file for, in part 11, if you go to part 11 of your Cats and Cars, you can learn about exemptions. Yeah, and you can file for an exemption to a prohibition. However, the easiest way to fly in a prohibited airspace is if they invite you and they say, we need a drone to come and fly here to do a service. And then you're like, okay, cool. Boom shaka. Okay. A nice example of this is Pelindaba nuclear power plants. Because they could send people up those radioactive silos, okay, taking all the radioactive damage and all the danger of going up on a piece of string and stuff like that. Or they can hire a drone pilot, and the drone pilot will fly in an FAP, right? Because you're flying in an FAP, you do not want to be flying in a nuclear power plant unless you're invited there. Because if just one thing happens, you will wipe out a city. So FAPs, the nuclear power plants guys, often are the biggest and tallest FAPs as well, because they give it such height. I know it's just something on the ground, but it's got a lot of height, because if an aircraft cuts, let's say the engine cuts out, and the engine cuts out when you're right above this thing, you're going to crash into it. Okay, that's why it's so high up, because if your engine cuts out here, you will be able to have space to glide away. Because like, yeah, it sucks that you're going to crash, but at least you're not going to kill 1 million people at the same time. Okay, then you've got your FAR, is your restricted airspace. A restricted airspace works like this, dudes. You phone them up and you say, can I have permission to fly on your restricted airspace? Awesome, guys. Looks like your lunch is here. Let me just settle this. So, according to our regulations, our FARs say a lot of stuff. They say that you have to have certain prerequisites met. They say that you have to have certain license and ratings. You need certain equipment. No. What you need is permission from whoever owns the FAR. Why? Because upon phoning them up and asking permission, they will then tell you what else you need. So you don't go preemptively buy 100,000 rands worth of equipment and now you're not using any of it. You first phone them, you say, can I have permission to fly there? They will then tell you what you need to fly there, and then you know what you need to go and buy. Okay. Cool. And then you go on to your FA. Oh, this doesn't actually bring it up, but this one is supposed to be your FADs. FAD stands for a danger area. Okay, your danger airspace. Danger area airspaces are the only ones that usually start in the air and end higher in the air. Why? Because 90% approximately of your danger airspaces are used for training. So you have student pilots. Okay, a student pilot will take off from a place like next to us, like Grand Central, and they will then fly to the nearest FAD, where they will then train. Okay, in that airspace that is used specifically for training purposes. So why is it an FAD and not just more uncontrolled airspace?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. What was my question?
Why is it called a danger area and not an unmanned airspace?
Why is it danger airspace and not just uncontrolled airspace?
Because you've got students that are flying them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who don't have experience.
Exactly. There is more danger. Okay? You make a danger airspace. Here, the hint I was going to give just now is that a danger airspace is an uncontrolled airspace. Danger airspace and uncontrolled airspace are the same type of airspace. The only difference is that danger airspace is segmented from the rest of uncontrolled airspace with the intention of letting people know that if they fly through that airspace, there is additional danger along that path. So instead of just having an all uncontrolled airspace, and now you're flying here and now there's a student pilot, and then you're flying there and now there's a student pilot, okay? Instead, they make a little section dedicated for student pilots, and they called it an FAD. That way you know that you don't want to fly through that. You want to stick to the borders. You want to go around it, okay? Because if you go around it, you know there's not going to be student pilots who are messing up. And guys, if you think student pilots don't mess up, man, even us instructors have stories upon stories about how we as students messed up, okay? That's what you do when you are learning. You mess up. So of course, instead of blaming the students and being like, well, blah, 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 just fly around it and you know you're going to be safe. Okay, it works that way. Cool. Hopefully, yes, that's true. Hopefully. Yeah, sometimes you do get a little bit of a mess, but no. The intention was for safety purposes. Okay. And then the last thing you need to know from part 91 is your VFR and IFR. Okay, if we look at this, VFR, flight determination, and weather deterioration. Guys, VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. And it is a rating. You as a pilot, upon getting your PPL, Private Pilot License, you are automatically rated as a VFR pilot, Visual Flight Rules. What that means is you can only fly under the flight rules of having vision. You need to be able to see out of your cockpit in order to fly. Okay, out of your windscreen. Okay. IFR is your instrument flight rules, and that's where you then go and train on how to use your screens, how to use all your dials and your instruments. Okay? Because that way you can be in the clouds, not able to see anything around you, but now you can see. Your transponder will say, there's an aircraft there, I know I need to be here. Your altimeter will say, I'm this high up above the ground. You don't need to see the ground, okay? That's the whole point of the difference between VFR and IFR. Alright, are we good so far? Okay, VMC stands for Visual Meteorological Conditions. Guys, just sum it up like this. Visual Met conditions. Okay? Meteorological just means weather. Okay? So it's saying, are the weather conditions good for visual circumstance? So, a VFR pilot can only fly in VMC, in Visual Met Conditions. Today is Visual Met Conditions. There's not a cloud in the sky. You can see perfectly clear. Okay? The weather conditions allow you to see. Versus your IMC, Instrument Meteorological Conditions, which is then where you need to use your screens to see, because you can't actually see what's around you. There's clouds all around you, or fog, or whatever it is. Okay? Understood? Awesome. So, the PIC stands for Pilots in Command. The PIC should always determine if the weather is in accordance with VFR. The CAA has a bunch of regulations that say this is VFR and this is not VFR. If you go to your AIP, sorry, I got hiccups. If you go to your AIPs, you will find the definitions and abbreviations and all of that stuff. Okay, Section 1 General. It'll help you. It'll teach you your common aviation information. Okay. Should the weather not permit the pilot to maintain the desired distance from clouds or minimum visibility, the pilot should do one of the following. Number 1, continue in VMC to the nearest aerodrome or leave the airspace. What that means is, depending on the situation, you might want to get a little bit additional help from the nearest aerodrome, but you're going to contact them and you're going to say, I'm heading for clouds, but I'm not supposed to go this low or I'm not supposed to go this high. What do I do? They will then give you the permission you need to either go below and maintain VMC or go above and be technically out of VMC, because VMC you need to be able to see the ground, but that's called special VMC, okay, which we'll talk about at some point coming up in this course. Okay, and then, oh yeah, there you go, special VFR. Actually, this is right here. So number 2 is then, if within CTR, you need to request special VFR. So CTR, guys, you don't need to know what it means right now, but essentially it is a controlled airspace. And if you are in controlled airspace, you can report or you can request special VFR. That's where you fly as much in VFR as you can. But if you do end up going in a bit of cloud or a bit of whatever it is, you have the CTR there to assist you in the navigation when you can't see to full effect, right? Because if you're flying and there's cloud next to you, yeah, you can see in front of you, but you can't see next to you. So VFR is when you can see all around you. Special VFR is when you can only see what's in front of you, essentially. Does it make sense? And that's why you need the CTR, because it'll have a control tower. And the control tower will then be able to say, make sure that you don't veer right.
So if there's a special VFR flying there, even the IFR pilot that's coming in, he has to wait for him to get on the ground.
Fascinating.
So one at a time.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you. You just have him alone in the CTR so that he can fly however he wants. But if he has to dodge the cloud, he has to move wherever he wants.
Oh, I
So
see.
one at a time.
Okay, yeah, of course.